In this video tutorial I want to talk about image sampler and how you can use it to produce a form like this. It's a surface based on this image that you can see here. I will also talk about a technique you can use with image sampler to dispatch and have two set of data, so you can use it to produce circles based on this image sampler you see here. And the next part I will talk about using this technique to produce two set of data and how you can combine them so you can produce patterns based on your image. So basically this is a video tutorial about the image sampler tool, which you can find in the params menu, and up here you have the image sampler, or you can easily search it by double clicking and typing image. So let's start from scratch. First I'm going to let's try to produce a point here, because when we want to use the image sampler tool, basically what it is and what it means is, let me just double click on it and explain it. So if you double click, you have such a setting here. You can choose the file path, so I'm going to choose a file. Basically you can choose a gradient image, maybe a colorful image, or whatever you want, but the best is the gradient image because you can easily and smoothly transform between the colors. So I think that the best image you can use in the image sampler is a gradient image, and I will show you why the colorful images will not have a good effect, or you have to produce some Photoshop effects on it or whatever you want. Okay, so I have produced this image with grasshopper, so I will teach this technique also in another grasshopper tutorial, but let's just select this, and you can see that you have different channels here. Basically if you have a gradient or a grayscale image, you can use this one. Okay, let's zoom in. You have the color brightness, which you can use for a black and white channel, so I'm going to use this. You can also use the red channel. It only outputs the red channel. Basically the first is the RGB, so let's just talk about RGB here. So it's the red, green and a blue channel combined, so we have an RGB. You can have the red channel or the green channel or the blue channel if you have a gradient or you're working with these colors separately, so you can use these. You can have the transparency one if you're working with an image that has an alpha channel as a transparency here. You can use the color hue if you're going to another set of colors, and the last is the color saturation, but basically the best is for the brightness of the image. We are not going to change this X domain and Y domain because it's based on the 0101, and I'm going to explain this and what happens. Okay, let's go for the OK. You can also see that it auto updates. If you have the have this checked, the image will be auto updated if you change it in another program or whatever you're working. And if you save in the file, you will have this image in your grasshopper file. Okay, so what is an image sampler? Let me just explain it here. So image sampler is basically a simple tool which will use a two-dimensional coordinates. So we have two axes here, so basically this is 0 to 1 and this is 0 to 1, and what happens here is in this corner we have the 0 0 coordinate, up here we have the 1 1 coordinate, and here we have the 1 0 and we have 0 1. So whenever you want to have the output from the image sampler, you have to give it a UV coordinate. So The UV coordinate is very important. If you don't know about the UV coordinate, feel free to check the evaluate surface video. I've talked about UV coordinate and what it meant, what it means, how you can use the UV coordinate, and it's a little bit different from the XY coordinate or XYZ coordinate we have in the main canvas. So for a simple one, let's check this out. If I give an MD slider, which is a simple tool you can use for a UV coordinate, and let's just connect a panel to this, you can see that we are extracting the color of these coordinates by this UV coordinate. Okay, so you can see if I change this to the corner, we have a brighter one. If we come here, we have a darker one, and basically you can see the changing data here. Okay, so this is the basic of the image sampler, which you have to understand to work with it. So we have to connect a UV coordinate to the image sampler so we can use it as the data and work with it. So what I'm going to do here is, let's have an exercise with some points here. I'm going to go to the vector section, and I'm going to use a point here. So it's a construct point tool. Okay, and here we go. We have a 0, 0, 0. Let me just go from the top. A 0, 0, 0 coordinate here, and if we connect this to the image sample, we have output of this color. Okay, we don't want this. Let's just go for an array. I'm going to make copy of this point with an array, a rectangular array. You can go for the array, rectangular array. Let's just array this point, and we need a cell, rectangular cell here. I'm going to give it a rectangle. Okay, and let's just give it a size. I'm going to give it a equal size for X and Y. Okay, so this is basically the size, and here we go. The X count maybe 50 to 50, because more points mean more data on the image sampler. So I'm going to give it 2,500 points, which are basically our XY points. So we cannot connect this to this, because what will happen is those points will go out the border. You know, we have a maximum of 1-to-1 coordinate here, but you can see here that we will have, let's check this out, we have 28, 0, 84, 0, and those are too much. So how can we just correct this? There's a small and a cool technique you can use, and this is the technique I'm going to type here. So if we have an X, Y, Z coordinate, so that's a point in the space, and we want a UV coordinate, what should we do? So you can easily use this tool. Okay, let's make it go for the blue ones. Okay, you can use the CP surface tool and a bit of a reparameterize. So what will happen you will project this point onto a surface. You have a surface that is reparameterized. I'm going to explain that, and you will have the UV coordinates. So if this, let's just explain this. If we have a surface here, this point, okay, this point, maybe it's just something like this. Maybe it's 200, 200, but because we want to use it in the image sampler, we have to have this coordinate. Okay, so it's basically a 1, 1 coordinate. So maybe this point, it's going to be something like a 100, 100 coordinate, but basically what we need is something like this. I'm explaining this because you have to understand what a UV coordinate is based on a surface. So the best way you can convert a point from an XY coordinate to a UV coordinate is to have a surface. So I'm going to use the surface tool. I'm going to use this bounding box and I'm going to give this bounding box to the points and right click on the bounding box and use a union box, because I want a union box which will cover all the points. Okay, that's a union box, and you can see the surface will emerge. And now we can use the technique, the CP surface technique. I'm going to use the surface closest point, and let's just project these points into the surface, and this is the surface we want to project these points. But remember, when you're going to give the CP surface technique, you have to right click on the surface and choose the reparameterize. So first, project those points by the surface closest point tool and give the points to the point and choose a base surface to this, and basically you have to have the reparameterize input. So let's just reparameterize, and here we go. We have the UV coordinate, and you can see here that we have from 0, 0 to 1 to 1, and all the data will be between the 0, 0 and 1 to 1. And that's the technique you can use to have the UV point. You have also the projected point here, which we don't need. It's basically the same as the point because those points are on the surface, and it doesn't have any difference. But the main technique we use the surface closest point is we have a reparameterized surface, we have a UV point, and here we go. Okay, so let's go and use this UV point and connect it. So we are just mapping this points onto this image sampler, and we have the data. Let's reconnect this. We have a 0 to 1 data based on the brightness of this image, okay, color brightness. So we are ready to go. We have everything we want, and now we can use these numbers to give these points some weight. So the best and the easiest way you can do is to just move these points. Let's just MV move these points in the Z direction, and if I connect this to the Z direction, what will happen is that basically this white will go to 1, so maybe something a little bit of move here, okay, just a 1 here, and the blacks are going to go to the 0, so it's near the points. Okay, you can see here that the points are very near each other. Okay, so we need something to spice this up. We can do this with two techniques. One is to just multiply this, go to the math, multiplication, multiply this to maybe 25.6, give this to the Z, and let's just increase that. And we're going to turn off everything, so we'll have the surface. Okay, here we go, and you can see that those points are moving based on this image. I'm going to change this so we can check this out. Another one. Okay, we're going to this face. You can see that's going based on the picture, and here we'll have some move here, but basically that's not a, we can use this technique also, but it's better to just go for the next one. Okay, so now we have it. That's why I told you to use a gradient color, because you can smoothly change the data and have weight for all those points. And now let's go and give a surface to these points. So I'm going to the surface and use this surface from points, and let's give the U count. Basically that's the U count because we have the 50 and the 50 rate points, and here we go. Okay, let's just turn this off, and here's the surface, the shaded points. Okay, so you can see that. Let's give it a color, going to the display section and going to the custom preview, and let's just connect a swatch here and give it a color. Okay, that's my favorite color. You can see the results. Okay, here we go, you can change that. There's another technique you can use if you want to give a minimum and the maximum you're controlling, and that's using the remap tool. I've explained about the remap in the introduction. You can use that, or in the first tutorials, but I will put it also in the website. So I'm going to give this the data, and let's just give it from 2.5 to maybe 400, okay, and use the remap technique. So there's a benefit in using remap because you can change the minimum and the maximum. So basically you are changing the location of those colors. That's a better result. And let's just, okay, I don't want this. Let's just change this to the curve, and here we go. You can see this. Let's just go to the min and the max. And this is the first technique you can use. There are several techniques you can use for the image sampler. Let's just go and have a copy paste, turn this off, and come here. Okay, what about working with the points? Okay, we can also maybe just draw some circles here. Okay, we can draw circles on these points and have the radius of these circles based on the image sampler. So I can go to the curve, I can go to the circle, I'm giving the points to the center of the circle, so we will have a circle, one circle with radius 1 in each point. And then I'm going to connect this to this. Okay, let's just turn the points off, and here we go. So it's a 0.7 to 39 radius for the circles, and we can have this easily. So you can see how easy it is to use the image sampler to combine it with geometry or use it for the parametric design techniques. We can also combine this with the dispatch technique, which I talked about in the dispatch tutorial. So how you can do it is going like this. So let's just go and have it like let's go to the math section, and we can just check for larger or smaller. So I'm going to give a larger here and say which numbers are larger than 25%. So there will be some of the points that are true, some of which are false. And in that tutorial, in the dispatch tutorial, I talked about dispatch, which we can just dispatch these points. Let's just dispatch these points. Okay, check this out. This is the list A and this is the list B. So we will have two lists. We can use the list A for the circles, and I'm going to dispatch also the data we used for the remap. I'm going to explain what happened here, okay? Maybe you're just confused, but let me just explain. It's a simple one. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. And here it goes. Okay. So what I did is I just checked the data from the image sampler. Is it bigger than 25%? Yes, it is, or no, it is not. So I dispatched first the points. So we will have only the bigger than 25% colors coming out for the points. We dispatched the points, and now we also dispatched what the output of the image sampler. So we will also need only the data of the color only if it's bigger than 25%. And I remapped this to only one number because I want it to be a single radius for all the circles here. So here we go. Let me just take this a bigger size and a bigger circle. And here you see that. Okay, we can also use the list B. If we go for the list B, you can see that we are choosing for the inner part of this black section. So you can go here and use the list B for one circle, and let's just change this for another list, or the list A. Let's just go for the list A and give it another circle here. So this is the technique. You can just have list A and list B in two different points, two different numbers over a map. And here you go, you can see the results. I'm going to change this to the curve. You can change the number. The best part is that you can change the number of the colors you want. Okay, so I can go and just turn this off. We'll have a simple one, or maybe I just need the curves. And I can change how much of the colors I need, how much percent of the brightness I'm going to work this on. Okay, and this is the next one. You can change this. So this is how it works. And you can also use it for whatever you want. You can maybe, let's just give it another example. I'm going to save this file so you can work on it. Okay, let's turn this off and go for another one. Maybe we can just use this to extrude. Let me have that logic here. So I'm going to have this logic. Is it bigger or smaller than something? And now we have two groups, two set of points. And what we can do here is maybe we can just have the panels here. Okay, have these panels or whatever you want. You can do anything. So let's just have another. So what I'm going to do is let's just have another practice or exercise. We can have a rectangle here, and let's just array this rectangle. So we have a rectangular array. I'm going to array this rectangle with its own cell. Okay, let's just go to the maybe 30 to 30. Okay, now we are going to explain how I'm going to use the image sampler with the rectangular array. So what we need is, let's give this image sampler here and use the graphs. We have the brightness. Okay, we need a UV point. So if I give an surface area and get the centroid, these centroids are in XYZ coordinate. You can see here 32, 97, and so on. So these are not UV coordinate, they are X and Y and Z coordinate. So what we need is to have a CP surface. We have going to go to CP surface and project these points on a surface. So how can we have the surface here? We can have the, again, going to the surface and using the bounding box, and have the bounding box from all of the rectangular arrays, and don't forget to have the union box on. So we have one box output here and the flat box, and here we go. We have to reparameterize the surface and we're good to go. We have the UV coordinate, and let's just connect this, and here we can just turn this off. And what about just extruding them? So I'm going to extrude these rectangles in the Z direction and using the image sampler. So I'm going to give it a remap from 10 to maybe 200. Okay, and here we go. And you can see that I'm just extruding these based on the color we have here, or the brightness we have here. We can also have a cap here and finish this tutorial and go to the cap holes, and let's just bake this. Okay, and here you can see that we can just easily produce rectangles and boxes based on the image we are using. Okay, gotta change this and see what happens. And here you can see that it just extrudes. Okay, and another one. So this is a tutorial about image sampler. Feel free to ask your questions in the comment section in YouTube channel or in the website, and thank you for watching. If you have any commands which you don't understand, or you think you need a tutorial about it, feel free to ask and we will answer them in our Parametric House YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.